Yes.
So, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Tejal, for the very informative session. You stressed on the point that IMS is very important because it directly impacts our eligibility of ITC in our hands, which is as good as cash, and then it affects our working capital. So, thanks again for the very informative and useful FAQs and the various checks and balances that you highlighted. So moving on to the next important topic that has been doing rounds in our GST is the amnesty scheme or the waiver scheme, which was introduced by way of Section 128A. So as a brief, uh, right. So law was introduced in 2017. All of us were very diligent and we did file our returns. We did our self-assessment based on our understanding of the law. But however, off late, if you see after 6 years or 5 or 6 years, we have been receiving notices and which has been converted into orders saying that the stand that we took or the self-assessment that had been done by us is wrong due to so and so reason. Now, one way it is bad because the wisdom of 5 years has translated or has resulted into identifying the wrong that had happened in the initial phases. But nevertheless, there has been a huge pile of litigation that has been already created at various stages where notices issued in some cases, where orders have been concluded, where appeals have been filed, where appeal orders have been passed, or where writ petitions are filed. Some cases, writ petitions are closed. Some cases, SLP is filed, and which are pending. So the government decided that it's the right time to introduce an amnesty scheme wherein they said or wherein they've introduced that, see, if you pay the tax amount completely, we will reduce the burden of the interest and penalty. This was deliberated in detail in the GST Council meetings, and as a result of that, Section 128A was introduced. Now, corresponding to Section 128A is the Rule 164, where these two, this section and the rule, clearly lays down the entire scheme that has been, introduced and given to the benefit of the taxpayer. As I said, the scheme is for waiver of interest and penalty. However, if we have already paid interest and penalty, there won't be any refund of that. While I was preparing for this, I happened to read one LinkedIn post where it stated that any amnesty scheme. Chanel, is my video on?
Yes, your video is on.
Okay, sure. Thanks. So, yeah, where was I? No refund of interest. So, as I was saying, while I was preparing for this, for our conversation today, I happened to come across this LinkedIn post where one person pointed out that any amnesty scheme, the one who loses is the one who has been compliant all along. So wherever you have paid interest and penalty, nothing to do. There won't be any refund of it. For those who haven't paid interest and penalty, where the cases were alive or are still alive, there is a waiver of interest and penalty. Again, the condition to take this benefit is that the tax has to be paid in full. Now, again, the period that has been covered under the scheme is only for the first 3 years, that is 1718, 1819, and 1920. Here, there has been no distinction on the subject matter of the dispute. It could be anything, but the only exception is they have said erroneous refunds will not be covered in this amnesty scheme. Again, the dispute should have arose under Section 73 or Section 122 or Section 125. If it's any other section under which the demand is pending or the litigation is pending, this benefit will not be available. Circular 238 was introduced or was issued to clarify certain aspects and points around the scheme, which I will be covering along this presentation. Now, the scheme is, it's like a hotcake. Just in the afternoon, I got a message saying the forms will be introduced tentatively in the first week of Jan 25. That's next year. This is like the New Year gift from the government. So you heard me right. The forms, that is SPL 01 and 02, which I'll be talking about in some time, are not yet present on the GST portal. So they will be made available on tentatively from the first week of Jan. So again, it's tentatively. So let's wait and watch when this is going to be introduced on the portal. Moving on. I will walk you through the eligibilities and the timelines against each of the uh, stage where you can claim this benefit. As I said, Section 128A is the one which governs the scheme. So 128A subsection 1 has four stages where you can claim this benefit. 1A, 1B, 1C, and the first proviso to the subsection 1. 1A talks about a notice or a statement that has been issued under Section 73, but where no order is passed. Now, 1B talks about where order is passed, but no appeal order is passed under 107, or no rectified order is passed under 108. In case of 1C, where appeal order is passed or rectified order is passed, but no order and appeal, further order and appeal has been passed. And the first proviso to Section 128A1 is basically where re-adjudication happens in terms of Section 75(2), wherein the order, the notice or the order which has been passed under 74 is being re-adjudicated and passed under 73 is covered in the first proviso. Just to reiterate, this entire section is for an order under 73 or 122 or 125. So if it's a notice or a demand order under Section 74, you will not be eligible. So that's straightforward out of the system. So for the first bucket, that is Section 1A, wherein we are at the notice level, that is at the show cause notice level, we have to claim the benefit by filing a form called SPL 01 for 128A 1B and 128A 1C. That is where the order is already passed and where the first appeal order is pending or the second appeal order is pending. We have to file something called as SPL 02. And where the re-adjudication happens, we are supposed to file something called as SPL 02. Now, as a condition, to the scheme, we were supposed to pay the taxes. Now the question arises is, when am I supposed to pay the tax? So I've highlighted at each of these buckets, when am I supposed to pay tax? So for the first category where SPL 01 is filed, we are supposed to pay the taxes within 31st of March 2025. For the second and the third, that is where the order is passed, where the appeal order is still pending. Again, for all the three cases, it's 31st March 2025. The only difference is in the last bucket where the re-adjudication happens. Now, since re-adjudication takes its own sweet time, so they have said 6 months from the date of issue of the re-adjudicated order is when we are supposed to pay the liability to claim the benefit of this waiver. Now, having paid, I'm supposed to file this form SPL 01. Again, I will deal with how to pay, in which manner am I supposed to pay the tax liability that is in the notice or the order. Now, when am I supposed to file the SPL 01 or 02? For the first three cases, that is 1A, 1B, 1C, all of these three have to be filed within 30th of June 2025. So assuming that the portal opens on first week of Jan, we have good 6 months to file this SPL 01 and 02. Now, for the case where re-adjudication happens, it is 6 months from the date of communication of the re-adjudicated order. So for the first three categories where the time limit is fixed, the last one is where we are supposed to keep a track of it, because many a times the re-adjudication happens and it is 6 months from that date of the re-adjudicated order. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. So I'll just pause for a minute so that we can see the timelines. Right. So moving ahead, I've tried to cover certain common pointers and doubts that have arose when we were discussing about this particular scheme. More so in terms of the eligibility of the scheme. Now, as I said, sorry, the payment has to happen before I file SPL 01 or 02. So what is the manner or what is the mechanism for paying this liability of tax, where we are claiming the benefit in SPL 01? That is where we are taking the benefit at the show cause notice level. We are supposed to pay the liability through DRC 03, where we are taking the benefit after the order is passed, either under clause B or clause C or the first proviso. We are supposed to debit the electronic liability ledger, which happens when we make the payment through this tab by name payment towards demand. So this we can find in our user services on the GST portal. So we are supposed to log in and click against the particular ARN number or the order reference number and offset the liability either through cash or through credit. Now let's assume we have already paid the liability with DRC 03 at the order level itself. Now to file, to claim the benefit of SPL 02, so rule 164 says that we are supposed to file the DRC 03A to adjust the payment that I've done in DRC 03 against the liability of this particular order. So the effect of this is, the liability ledger, electronic liability ledger comes down and gets adjusted with the DRC 03 that has already been generated. This is helpful for many of us because many a times we would have discharged the liability, the tax portion, or it could be such that on certain matters we would have paid the liability, and on certain matters we would have kept the order open by litigating it or by taking it on appeal. So all those cases we will be eligible to take the benefit of payment that has happened by making this declaration of DRC 03A, wherein we map the debit numbers in the DRC 03 with the order reference number in the electronic liability ledger. Now, another question could arise is monies that are recovered from the third parties. Let's say a garnishee notice was sent in DRC 13 to one of your customers, or the money was recovered from your bank account directly. The circular says that the monies that are recovered from these third parties are also eligible as payment towards the tax while I'm filing SPL 01 or 02. But the problem is none of the forms which have been notified yet but not active on the portal have a provision to capture these details. So we'll have to wait and watch as to how the money is recovered from third persons, more so from DRC 13 perspective. How will that be captured in the SPL 01 and 02 is something that we have to wait and watch. Now, the next important thing is whether can I use my balance in credit ledger for making the payment of tax? The answer is yes, and even the circular says yes. The payment, the balance in electronic credit ledger can be used for payment of tax for the purpose of this scheme. However, the following three cannot be paid using credit ledger balance, that is RCM liability, in case of liability under 9(5) in the hands of an e-commerce operator, or in case of erroneous refunds. Right. Now, moving to clause subclause B and subclause C, where I said order is passed or order and appeal has been passed, but the further appeal order is not passed. Now, a question arises, should I file an appeal first and then go for the scheme, or can I directly go take the benefit of the scheme? So let's take an example. An order for 1718 has been passed in the month of say December 2023, but I haven't filed any appeal. So am I eligible in clause 128A 1B or not is the question. If we read this section, it says, and where no order under subsection 11 of 107 or subsection 1 of 108 has been passed. So there's a little bit of confusion here. Whether an appeal filing should be done first to get the eligibility to file SPL 02 or not is still open. But to what I feel, we don't have to file an appeal, even if the order has been, just a minute, even if the order has been left unattended where no appeal has been filed, I believe we are still eligible to take the benefit under SPL 02. So we don't have to file an appeal. But however, there are divergent views to say that appeal has to be filed and pre-deposit has to be paid in order to take the benefit under SPL 02. So that's on whether an appeal has to be filed. Now, in case where I've already filed an appeal, now what happens? The law says, or the scheme says, we are supposed to withdraw the appeal or the writ petition or the special leave application that has been done. Now, this withdrawal has to happen before filing of SPL 01 or 02. However, many a times the order for withdrawal might not be passed immediately. So there a benefit has been given to say that if the application has been filed, but the order for withdrawal has not happened up till the time of filing of SPL 01 or 02, we are given the benefit or we are given the option to file the withdrawal order within 1 month from the date on which the withdrawal order has been passed. Now, this is a very important or a crucial step because without we furnishing the withdrawal order, the benefit under this 128A will not be granted. So it's not like we file the withdrawal application and then we keep quiet. We have to follow up for the withdrawal order and communicate the withdrawal order within 1 month of its issuance. So this is a very crucial step because most of us would have filed appeal and we'll be contemplating of claiming this benefit. So whereby we file for a withdrawal and then we have to communicate this withdrawal order. Now, there could be instances where one consolidated show cause notice is issued for multiple periods and for multiple matters. As I said, every matter is covered except for erroneous refund, and the eligible period is only the first 3 years. So for ease of understanding, I've tabulated this here saying eligible period, eligible matter which pertains to 16.4 disallowance, wherein the relief was again given in 16.5 and 16.6, and there's a separate procedure for that. And then I'm bucketing under non-eligible period and non-eligible matter. In case of non-eligible period, it could mean it means any notice or demand order after 2021 and onwards. So that will be the non-eligible period. And non-eligible matter will be our erroneous refunds because that's the only thing that is kept outside. Now, what happens if one consolidated order or notice is issued? Now, let's understand each of the type of due. One, it could be interest, it could be tax, or it could be penalty. Now, tax has to be paid for eligible period, eligible matter in full. If the tax portion pertains to 16.4, 16.5, or 16.6 ITC dispute, then that need not be paid because the benefit of 16.4, sorry, the provisions of 16.4 disputes have been relaxed by 16.5 and 16.6. So that need not be paid. But in case the tax pertains to any non-eligible period or non-eligible matter, the tax again has to be paid in full. What happens in case of interest? For eligible matter and period, it is waived off. For 16.4, it is waived off because tax is not payable. For non-eligible period, this interest has to be paid in full. What happens to penalty? Again, for eligible period and matter, waived off. For 16.4, 16.5, 16.6, since no tax is payable, it's waived off. But for non-eligible period and matter, it has to be paid. Now, what is the time limit for payment? This has to be paid from 3 months from the date our scheme has been approved in SPL 05 or 06. Don't worry, these forms have been covered in the subsequent slides as to what each of that denotes to. So I'll pause here for a minute so that we understand this particular table, which is very important because the payment of tax for non-eligible period and non-eligible matter is very crucial, and that has to happen at the time when I'm filing the application in SPL 01 or 02. So that's the importance of this non-eligible period and non-eligible matter. And plus, having accepted the tax, the even interest and penalty would be applicable, which has to be paid within 3 months. Right. Now, another question could arise whether late fee and redemption fines are covered. this has been specifically clarified that late fee and redemption fines will not be covered because they are not tax dues. Whether e-way bill matters will be covered? No, because e-way bill matters are not matters that are governed under Section 73. Rather, it is under Section 129. And as I said, 128A is more so to do with 73 matters, or it's only for 73 matters, or penalties under 122 and 125. So hence 129A, 129 will not be covered. Now, whether TRAN credit will be covered? Yes, TRAN credit will be covered only if the same has been availed in the first 3 years. Again, there was a facility that was given. That is the second time where we took TRAN credit because of the decision in Philco judgment. So if we have taken the TRAN credit second time, which is outside the first 3 years, then that will not be covered here because that falls directly in the non-eligible period. But if the TRAN credit has been taken in the first 3 years, that is in the eligible period, then TRAN credit would be covered in the scheme of 128A. Now, another question could arise. What if the show cause notice or the order is purely for interest and penalty? There'll be two scenarios here, two types of adjudication that happens, at least what we've seen in the state of Karnataka. When it comes to center, what happens is they, if they have to create a demand for interest or penalty where the tax has already been paid, they give a notice or order saying why this notice, why this amount shouldn't be paid, why this amount which has been paid should not be appropriated, why interest should not be levied, why penalty should not be levied. But whereas if it's a state jurisdiction, the first two aspects are missing. They directly ask us saying why interest shouldn't be paid, why penalty shouldn't be levied. Now, the entire scheme of 128A, read with the rule, even the circular says, even if HCN or order is purely for interest and penalty, the same will be covered in the benefit that is extended in 128A. However, the circular 238 carves an exception saying if the interest or penalty is arising out of self-assessment, then the same will not be covered. Now, what do I mean self-assessment? Where they have tried to give a couple of examples, which says that if I have belatedly declared any liability in GSTR 3B or GSTR 1 for that matter, or there is a belated filing of GSTR 3B. So this tantamounts to self-assessed liability, and the same will not be covered, is what Circular 238 says. They use the logic that interest on this should be directly recovered using 7512. Hence, the benefit of this waiver shouldn't be given. To my mind, I feel the circular is stretching or going beyond rule section 128 and 164, because section 128A clearly says if a notice is given under 73 or if an order is passed under 73, I'm eligible for the benefit. Now, what is the point of bifurcating the self-assessed liability versus non-self-assessed liability? It doesn't, I think it's an artificial breaking of the benefit that has been given. So to this extent, I feel the circular is going beyond the section. It could be ultra vires the section and the rule. So I believe even if the interest is on self-assessed liability but covered in a notice issued under 73 or an order under 73, the same should be covered in the scheme and the same is eligible to be waived off. To this extent, I differ with the view on the Circular 238. Right. So the next pointer to consider is there is an ongoing obligation that we carry once we file SPL 02. I would like to read out this particular declaration that has been mentioned in the SPL 02, which we will have to tick if we have to file this on the portal. It says, if an application is filed or has been filed by the department against the order mentioned in Table 2, or if any proceedings are initiated under subsection 1 of Section 108 against the said order, and the appellate authority or the appellate tribunal or the court or the revisional authority, as the case may be, issues an order enhancing any tax liability, I undertake to pay the additional amount of tax payable within 3 months from the date of the said order of the appellate authority or the appellate tribunal or the court or the revisional authority, as the case may be, as per second proviso to subsection 1 of section 128A. So at this point, I would like to draw your attention to second proviso to section 128A1, which states that if any departmental appeal has been filed or if any revision proceedings are started against an order on which I have taken the benefit under clause B or clause C, then any additional liability that arises because of such departmental appeal or such revisional proceedings, that has to be discharged by me along with interest and penalty. If I don't do this, then Rule 164.16, read with the same second proviso to 128A1, clearly states that the benefit that I have taken on account of interest and penalty waiver shall become void. So it means that if I don't pay the additional liability within 3 months from the date of the said order, then the waiver of interest and penalty given under 128A will be withdrawn and will become void. That means interest and penalty will become payable, which was otherwise waived off in the section 128A. Now, this could, feel like an ongoing obligation because after filing this SPL 02, there are possibilities that the revision could happen, or the departmental authorities can go on a departmental appeal, which have the effect or which have the possibility of enhancing the liability. Now, having claimed this benefit, we also run, we also given to the obligation that if at all the the tax liability is enhanced on account of these two, then we are supposed to pay this liability within 3 months. There could also be a possibility where an order has been passed for 3 matters, 2 in taxpayers' favor, or 2 in taxpayers' favor and 1 in department's favor. Now the taxpayer decides that let's not proceed for the one matter that is against them and rather claim the benefit of 128A. So they file SPL 02 for waiver of interest and penalty on that one matter which was decided in favor of the department and pay up the tax dues. Now the taxpayer has the obligation, he carries this obligation that if at all the department goes on appeal on those 2 matters which was decided in the favor of the taxpayer, and those 2 matters are further decided in favor of the department, then this taxpayer is duty bound to pay the additional liability on account of this departmental appeal. So this is the effect of this second proviso and this declaration that we sign when we file the SPL 02 on the portal. Now, a question that arises is, right, department filed the appeal and that was decided in their favor. Now, what should I do? Should I mandatorily pay this, or do I have an option to appeal against the said order? Yes, you can go and appeal, but with the way 128A1 second proviso is worded, and given the fact that Rule 164 Subrule 16 clearly says that interest and penalty waiver shall become void, the waiver of interest and penalty might be withdrawn, so that it's at the cost of interest and penalty withdrawal that we can go and appeal against the said order. Now, what happens if I had filed an original appeal? Say, let's say, continuing the same example where 2 matters were in my favor and 1 matter was in the department's favor. I want to file, I went ahead and filed the appeal against that 1 matter which was decided against me. Now, because of this 128A, I had to withdraw the appeal. Now, department went on appeal on those 2 matters which were in my favor, and by virtue of the departmental appeal, all the 3 matters are decided against me now, because 1 was already against me and the departmental appeal order is also against me. So all the 3 are against me. Now, what happens to the original appeal that is filed? Now, will it be restored or not? Again, the Rule 164, nor the section 128A, nor the circular is very clear on this matter, whether the original appeal will be restored. To my mind, it should be restored because we are any which ways giving away the benefit of waiver of interest and penalty. So at least the benefit of original appeal should be brought back, and we will be thrown back to square one, where all the three matters are in against me, where I have to dispute that in further appeal process. Again, this is not very clear. This is not explicitly mentioned. This is what I think should happen, because otherwise I'll be left remediless. And all the three matters have to be paid, accepted by me and be paid by virtue of this obligation. Now, whether interest and penalty for liability discharged in 9 and 9C be covered? Yes, it should be covered, because the same is not self-assessed liability, because self-assessed liability means the liability that is discharged only in GSTR 3B and not by virtue of 9 and 9C. So it should be covered. Now, whether IGST paid on import of goods be covered, the circular says it will not be covered, because a notice under 73 will not be issued. Rather, it will be a notice that comes under Customs Act. So hence, the benefit will not be given. Now, what happens for interest and penalty on compensation cess? It is very much covered in the scheme. So that was all about the eligibilities and various intricacies around the eligibility for the waiver scheme. Moving ahead with the timelines, as I said, we start off by filing SPL 01 or 02 within the timelines that I had mentioned in the first slide. That is, if you're in the first three buckets of 128A, 1A, 1B, 1C, that is 30th of June 2025, or that is or in the fourth bucket, where this 6 months from the date of communication of the re-adjudicated order, we file. That's the starting process. Now the proper officer verifies the application that has been filed along with the documents. Now, if he is satisfied, then an acceptance order will be issued in SPL 05, which will be passed within 3 months from the date I file SPL 01 or 02. Now, let's say the PO is not satisfied, then he is mandatorily required to issue a notice in SPL 03 within 3 months from the date of application. Now, here I have to respond to this notice in SPL 04 within 1 month from the receipt of this notice. Again, after the receipt of this notice, if PO is not satisfied with the reply, then he shall reject in SPL 07. If PO is satisfied with the reply, then he shall accept it in SPL 05. So while just for our understanding, while the application form is SPL 01 and 02, the acceptance will happen in SPL 05, the rejection shall happen in SPL 07. So these are the forms that will be very important for us. Now, if PO is satisfied with the reply, he shall give SPL 05. What is the timeline? It shall be within 3 months from the date I respond in SPL 04, or it shall be within 4 months from the date of issuance of notice where the response has not been tendered. Now, if any of these timelines are not followed, that is, if SPL 05 is not issued within 3 months or within 4 months of non-filing of response, then the law says there is a deemed acceptance of the scheme or of the SPL 01 and 02 that has been filed by the taxpayer. Now, I earlier mentioned that where an appeal has to be withdrawn, or a writ petition has to be withdrawn, or an SLP has to be withdrawn. So we have been given the option to file the withdrawal application and then file the SPL 01 and 02. And later on, when the withdrawal order has been passed, we are given 1 month to communicate this withdrawal order as a supporting to our SPL 01 or 02. Now the law says, while computing the above time limits, that is 3 month, 1 month, or 4 months that is mentioned in the slide. Now the time from date of application till the time I submit the withdrawal order, that shall be excluded for the purpose of computing the above time limits. So we have to be very careful and mindful, because most of us would be in that bucket where we have to withdraw the appeal, wherein we file the application just with the withdrawal application, and then later on we are supposed to give the withdrawal order. So please bear in mind that the time from the application till the time I submit the withdrawal order stands excluded in the above mentioned time limits. So this is about the time limits. Now, as I said, the rejection can happen in SPL 07. Now, a doubt can arise saying, can I file appeal against this SPL 07? Because this is a decision to not, give the benefit of 128A. Yes, you can file an appeal under section 107 to challenge this rejection. Now, the entire ground or the only matter to be decided in the appeal under 107 would be the admissibility or the rejection of 128A, and the court will not, sorry, the appellate authority will not go into the merits of the case. So it will be restricted only for acceptance or the rejection of the scheme of 128A. That's the limited purpose of the appeal, which I will be filing against SPL 07. Now, after I file the appeal, now the appellate authority can say the rejection is correct, can say the rejection is wrong. Let's say if the rejection is set aside, that is, the rejection is wrong, and that means the taxpayer is eligible for claiming the benefit of 128A, then the proper officer has to pass an order in SPL 06, which shall be final and binding on all the parties. In the eventuality that the rejection is upheld, that is, the taxpayer is not eligible to take the benefit of 128A, the law says the original appeal, if I have filed any, that shall be restored, subject to the condition that I give a declaration that I will not go on appeal against the order, against the appeal order upholding the rejection of SPL 07. So that is one condition. Now, let's say the rejection was upheld, but originally I had not filed any appeal. So that once it is rejected, you're outside the scheme of 128A, and there is no appeal. Since there was no appeal that was filed, no appeal will be restored. So this is about the timelines. Now moving on to the general pointers, that is certain FAQs. I have tried to cover many of the doubts that arose regarding eligibility or or the timelines, as in when I spoke about the eligibility or the timelines. However, there were certain things that certain points that I felt is necessary to consider or to bear in mind while we are filing this application. Now, am I eligible? A standard question or a general doubt that arises is whether am I eligible for the scheme even if the taxes are paid prior to insertion of 128A? Again, section 128A does not discriminate when the tax was paid, whether you pay prior to 128A or you pay after insertion of 128A. The fact is the tax is paid and you've generated DRC 03, and hence you will be eligible for the scheme of 128A. Again, if you have paid through DRC 03 and you're contemplating to file SPL 02, we are supposed to follow that procedure of DRC 03A, wherein we map the liability in the liability ledger with the payment that has happened in DRC 03. Now, what should I do if a notice was issued in section 74 or an order has been passed under 74? Now, the right way would be to persuade the matter to prove that the ingredients of section 74 was not applicable. Let's say if they valid suppression, file an appeal, prove that suppression or fraud or willful misstatement was not applicable and has been wrongly invoked. Now, request for invocation of 75(2) at the office of the first appellate authority. Now, the matter will be re-adjudicated and the order will be passed under section 73. Once the order is passed under 73, claim the benefit of this 128A on such re-adjudicated order, which we have been talking about as the first proviso to section 128A(1). So don't worry if a notice or order is under 74. Persuade the matter. Try possibly, try if we can convert this 74 proceedings into a 73 proceedings, and then contemplate whether waiver of benefit of interest and penalty is to be claimed or not. Now, as I said, say a notice or order contains multiple matters. Now, the choice of paying for some and disputing for some is not allowed. So it's like you pay the entire tax demand that has been mentioned in the notice or the order, and then go for the waiver of interest and penalty. So part payment is not allowed. Tax has to be paid on all the subject matters which are covered in the notice or in the order. Now, another thing which I highlighted earlier also, and to have bear in mind, is that if it is the no, if there is a non-eligible period or a non-eligible matter in the notice or the order for which I am taking the benefit of 128A, upfront payment of the tax portion of the non-eligible period and the non-eligible matter has to be made at the time when I file SPL 01 or 02. So there we are not given any sort of a concession saying we can pay later, or part payment is allowed later. That has to be paid upfront at the time of or before the time of filing SPL 01 within those time limits that is mentioned. Now there are possibilities that the online summary meaning DRC 01 or D07 does not match to the actual show cause notice or the order that is issued, or the possibility is that there could be mistakes in DRC 01 or 07. For instance, a typographical error, or case where I have paid for certain points but they have not considered, or they have adjusted it against the wrong subject matter. All that is possible. Now, what to do in such cases? Because when the online when the summary is issued, SPL 01 or 02 mandates us to mention the ARN number of the DRC 01 or 07. So naturally, any mistake that has happened in 01 or 07 will flow into SPL 01 and 02. So the right course of action would be to file a rectification application to say that, see, the summary doesn't match, or there are certain mistakes apparent on the record of the summary. Please rectify it. Now request for an early conclusion of rectification process, because the time limits for filing SPL 02 has to be adhered to. Once the rectification has happened, then proceed to file SPL 01 and 02, and then the process of 128A will kick in. Now, it's also a possibility that one notice or order is issued for multiple periods, but on the portal, they would have issued summaries for individual years. So let's say an order was issued for 1718, 1819, 1920. So there are 3 DRC 07s for 1718 1, 1819 2, and then 1923. So the the confusion is, should I file one SPL 02 or should I file 3 SPL 02? There is no specific clarification on this. Even the circular is silent on this aspect. I feel we have to file 3 individual SPL 02 because SPL 02 requires us to mention the ARN number of the DRC 07. And since I'm going against a DRC 07, we are supposed to make the payment against the demand ID. So each DRC 07 ARN will have one demand ID. So the payment also will be adjusted against that ID only. So because of this technical limitation, we'll be forced to file 3 separate SPL 02s for each of the ARNs mentioned for each of the years, even though it's only one order that has been passed cumulatively for all the periods. So this was about multiple periods. Now, you could ask me, Vinay, what happens if I haven't filed the original appeal and also the 128A benefit is rejected? Now, what should I do? I would say it's a lost case because time limit to file is any which way is gone. So we can't file for an appeal. And even the benefit of when interest and penalty is not granted, or it's rather rejected, one way could be is to fight the rejection of 128A to take it to its logical conclusion and say, okay, at least try that, saying 128A should be allowed in my case. But in the eventuality that even 128A is rejected, we are back to square one, where we have no remedy of filing an appeal under the Act. And the only thing that will be left is for initiation of recovery proceedings against that particular order. Now, what happens if appeal is filed? Now, if appeal is filed, naturally, I'm supposed to withdraw the appeal to claim the benefit of 128A. Alternatively, we could, think of requesting a early hearing to dispose of the matters on merit, where we know that there are the chances of winning, getting a favorable decision on that particular matter is very high. So request for a early hearing, let the adjudicating authority decide on merits, let that part be in your favor, and then for the balance portion which is decided against you, we can file for 128A under clause C, which is still permitted. Another advantage of filing an appeal against the order is that if the benefit of 128A is not given or approved, or it's rejected, and the rejection is also upheld by the appellate authority under 107, the original appeal will be restored. So there is nothing that we lose by filing an appeal. So it's better that we file an appeal against the order and then go for the benefit under 128A. So this was what I had about 128A benefit that has been given. So I hope I was clear. Now I'll give it over to Chanel to moderate us for the queries and the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vinay, for patiently taking us through the nuances of Section 128A. You very lucidly explained the various nuances, and I hope our audience has truly benefited from your explanations. Quickly,